Hey everybody, welcome back to the Everyday Adventure Podcast. I'm joined by Megan. How's it going, Megan?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. What's new in the life of Megan?
New in my life, not much, but my sister was here this weekend, so that was
So
fun. Yeah, we hung out with you guys, of course, and so, that was fun, and then I'm heading out of town this weekend for a work retreat, so
Awesome.
Also fun, so.
You got some good, fun stuff going on.
Full week, but it's been fun, so.
That's awesome.
What about you? What's new?
Well, it's been good. It's just been fun. I was on another podcast, so it's fun when you do a podcast and then you get to go on another one to see how they do it. The Beyond the Spotlight guys, they have like the coolest little studio, and their setup, I was just like, oh, that's really cool.
It doesn't look like this.
Well, even just like that part, but even just the way that they go about it, like their intros, outros, like all that stuff. I was like, oh, you guys are good.
They're legit. Yeah.
No, one of the cool things was that on Facebook this past week, one of those memories popped up, and usually I kind of miss those, or like I don't look for them. But this one was our babysitter, Sage. And this was from when we lived in New Jersey. It was 5 years ago. And it was us at like a frozen yogurt place. And, the kids are smiling and laughing. And it's a really fun picture. But it just kind of made me like remember that season. Because we met her in maybe like January or February of 2021. We had started going to a new church. And because it was right after COVID, and so a lot of churches on the East Coast were closed for like almost a year and a half or 2 years. And our original church was. And so we came back from Christmas break and we're like, we just need to be able to go in person to church. So there's this church, True North, that was open, and we went to it. We checked our kids in, and on one of the first Sundays we were there, Sage like gave us one of our kids back, and she's like, I had so much fun, and if you guys ever want a babysitter, I would love to babysit for you. And Taylor and I were like, we looked at each other like, man, we've died to hear those words from somebody. Because when you move across the country, we had some people in our life, but we were all in the same season. Shout out Ryan Nelson. He watched our kids a couple times, but there's some backstories there. Ryan's a great dad now, but at that time he wasn't yet a dad.
He was a dad in training.
But just like that younger, we've always had these incredible young women in our life, like you and Valerie Cross, and the list goes on and on. Mallory, Ellie, of just people that were willing to watch our kids, and it was just a huge blessing. Well, we didn't have that, and Sage became that, and so that picture kind of like stirred up a lot of gratitude of like, whoa, God provided in a really unique way in that season where there was some discouragement and, some not to any part of anybody else, but like loneliness of just like loneliness isn't just a void of friends. It's sometimes a void of certain kind of relational provision or in your life. And so that memory brought me a lot of joy this week. It just brought me back to like that time that God came through in that way. And I just realized in kind of thinking about all of that, just the power of remembering, like just the power of like that memory had passed. And honestly, like, Sage, she goes to school in West Virginia now, but we haven't kept up with her. We did maybe for a year. We just haven't kept up with her. And so seeing her face, seeing that memory just brought a ton of joy. But it also kind of took me right back to, whoa, God provided in a way that we didn't even notice at the time. And so I just loved that the memory was cool for the moment, but also has been like something that this whole week I've been dwelling on when I'm thinking about God.
It's so cool. I feel like the picture itself, I can hear Kinsley's laugh in it, like her head's back, mouth wide open,
Yep.
And so it's a full Kinsley belly laugh. But,
for sure. Well, and even just seeing like Little Summit, he's like one at the time. And, it's just so funny just to see them encapsulated in that. That's the beauty of pictures. I'm describing pictures to people and they're like, we know what a picture does.
Right. They got it.
But yeah, it was so fun. It was so fun to see that.
Yeah. And I feel like that's true for a lot of things that we've experienced in life, is that looking back on it, you realize just how impactful it was, or how big of a story God was writing, or intentional of a story he was writing, than when you're living it in your everyday life. And so hindsight's kind of 2020, but it also like brings out this gratitude and this like ability to want to be more intentional today with what you're doing.
Right. Well, and I think that's the thing, is that because life moves fast, and that's something that we have talked about in depth on the podcast, even some of our recent guests, Tanner, Bob, like just the people that we've been talking to have just kind of reiterated this point of like, sometimes we get into like this flow of life that moves a little fast, and then we miss so much of what God's doing. Well, one of the best ways that I've found to catch what God's doing is by looking back and by seeing where he's been and where he's brought us from. And so I'm excited to talk about that today.
Yeah. So today we're kind of talking all about remembering, and this kind of stems from the JourneyWay framework itself as well, which is a lot of what you're doing now. But remembering leads into so much of intentionality into where you're going. But do you just want to like introduce JourneyWay framework? How does remembering fall into what you're doing?
Yeah, this whole idea of JourneyWay, whether it's the coaching workshops, any of the things that we're doing and starting to do, is really this idea that we're all on a journey. Like we're all kind of in the process. And, what I've really realized is that people have come into my journey and have guided me. People have come into my journey and helped me move forward. And so that's really what this all stems around. So this JourneyWay framework is really, if you were to have a map, we talk about this a lot, but there's a couple pins on our map. There's the you are here point, and then there's the true north point. And then there's a lot between like where we are and where we're going. And so the JourneyWay framework is really helping people identify where you are, where you're going, and how we're going to get there. Well, the first thing before, I can really accurately describe where I'm at and figure out where I'm going is I need to figure out where I've been. And where I've been helps me really understand what got me here, what are the patterns that got me here, the relationships that got me here, the views of God that have gotten me here. And I have to then kind of evaluate, is that how I want to move forward? Is that what I want to bring into these next days, weeks, months? And so really before we can really accurately sit down and say, okay, this is where I'm at right now, I think it's helpful to take a little bit of inventory to see what got me here. Because the person sitting in these chairs right now, we have stories. We have past hurts. We have pains that we've walked through. We also have miracle stories and victory stories where we shouldn't be where we're at because of these things. And we have family dramas, or, I'm just thinking about anybody right now. It's like family drama. We have really troubling memories that honestly, this idea of remembering kind of can be more painful than it can be helpful right now. But I do think that there's power in those things.
Yeah. And I think there's so many scripture over and over again that we're like called to remember, that we're told to remember what God has done in your life, write it down. The book of John ends with like, if we were to write everything God has done, there wouldn't be enough books in the world.
Yeah.
And which I'm like, let's try, like let's just try it. But I think that, there's so many stories. I know like a big part of yours, a key scripture for you is like when we don't remember what God has done, we miss like the promises that he has for us. We miss like the provision that's ahead, because we've forgotten his faithfulness. And so I just think there's like, it's a calling from scripture as well as us just sitting here telling people to do it as well.
Yeah. I mean, in Psalm 77, verse 11, it says, I'll remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I'll remember your miracles long ago. Like that was just like a practice. Like I will remember. But in Deuteronomy, really what God is saying and through his leaders is, be careful that you do not forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. This idea of, it's easy to forget. And when we forget, we wander. When we forget, we complain. When we forget, and it happens over and over again through the story of the Israelites, is that they literally are on the outside of Egypt. They cross the Red Sea and they're like, I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. And Moses like, these people, and God continues to provide for them. And then they forget and they forget and they forget. And I think when we forget, we are subject to be in that job that we once prayed for, going like, God, I don't want to be here anymore. Or we can be in that marriage or that relationship and we can complain about what we don't have. And when we forget, we miss the blessing of God, and we forget to live in it. We don't actually enjoy it, embrace it. And that doesn't mean that the present isn't difficult. You know, the job that you longed for could have more complications than you thought it would have. It's not about that. It's just recognizing that this is part of God's blessing and his provision, even if you don't recognize it anymore. And I think another core thing is that when Jesus, you know, instituted communion, he said, "Do this in remembrance of me." As he took the bread and he took the cup, he literally said, "Do this to remember me." And, you know, so I think there's that practice that we can really embody and live within. But also I think there's these daily points, and maybe not daily, like the goal isn't to remember all the bad things that have happened in our life every day. It's sometimes we need to come back to those so that we can move forward. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but there's tension with remembering. It's tough. There's hard things that come up. There's things that have gone maybe undealt with, that maybe you've just pushed past. And so remembering feels hard, but what else do you think like leads to that tension? Why do people not want to do it, or why is it hard to make the space to want to do it?
Well, one, I mean, I think there's a level of, it's easier to just keep going. Like it's easier to just kind of, even if we're in a drift, like it's easier to just keep moving. There's less resistance there. Like any time, if we were standing in a river and I were to tell you to turn back, like the current would be hitting you, and there would be resistance there. And so there's a level of natural resistance whenever we turn back. And I think for a lot of people, there is a lot of pain back there. And so the idea of looking at that and thinking about that or remembering that, it doesn't feel productive at all. And I think there's times and spaces where God gives grace to, you know, and so what we're not saying is, you know, in a unhealthy, unbiblical way, stare at the things that hurt you, but I do think that it's really hard. I think God is willing to heal what we reveal. Like, I think the times in my life that I've been unwilling to confess something, unwilling to really identify that something exists, is the times that I've stayed stuck. You know, I think of, you know, kind of my own counseling journey. Like that was something that, you know, a series of events led me to realizing, like, man, there's some stuff back there that I have chosen to not, like, I really wanted everything to just be good. Like I just wanted everything to be fine. And when I started to look back and just recognize like patterns in my own life and just things that had happened in my life, I realized that it was not fun to look at those things and to revisit those things. But that is, in my journey, like that's where the healing began, was when I was actually able to sit down and recognize like, oh, that has more power over me than I thought it did. That relationship had more power over me than I thought it did. The tension I'm feeling today, every time I go to that certain place, is because of the things that I carry with me from many years ago. And so I think for me, like that was a necessary part. And so today, on the other side of that, you know, those same memories are there. Like the same thoughts are there, the same patterns are there, but they've been reframed, not by me, not by like wishful thinking, like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. You know, no, it's just through the Lord being able to meet me in those places and reveal himself in those places and reveal how he protected me in those places, reveal how he brought me through those places. There's a ton of peace and a ton of joy. Because I know for anybody, you know, when I tell somebody like, hey, you know, even just in a recent coaching session I had with somebody, we were talking about kind of our You Are Here and where we're at right now. And I kind of asked just about, and I'm not a counselor, so I don't go into, but what I do is recognizing that there's stories there that impact where we're at today. I want just awareness of that. And, you know, and there was a resistance to revisiting that. And the resistance was because I don't want to change my current relationship with that person by remembering the bad things, the negative things. But they had never once gone through that. And so they hold a ton of bitterness. They hold a ton of anger towards this person. But they want it to just be surface level fine. Like they don't want to have those conversations. And I'm not the one to say like, no, you need to do it. But I just thought it was interesting how painful it was and hard it was to even think about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's actually, I feel like, really timely that we were talking about this morning on the podcast, because yesterday we drove home for a family event, and my brother has a girlfriend. So hey, shout out. And spoiler if no one knew. But anyway, we were all sitting in the car, and we were going to a family event, so she was going into meeting a lot of our family. So we were telling her all these stories about our childhood and growing up and remembering all these things. And it was really fun to reminisce. It's really fun to do that with Matt, because like we just have different versions of like the same story, you know, of what's impacted us or what's stayed with us. But then also we kind of got to the end of the story, and then we both just said like, but what the good part of our story is the redemption in this is like our story didn't end there, you know, and like that was 6 years ago, like the page turned and the story changed. And then we just like got to encourage each other in that of like, yes, there is all of this that we hold like in our family and in our generations back and years past in childhood and all of this stuff. But like, there's also so much good, and there's so much joy, and there's laughter. And, you know, Matt and his girlfriend are dating, so we stopped at my mom's and we got all of his scrapbooks. So they want to go through old pictures, and we were going through pictures, and we were talking about the memories, and like so much joy was in the pictures that don't necessarily come up. I think, you know, we don't want to remember things because they're hard, but also I think hard overshadows the good that was happening. And so there's also so much good that you can remember in your story too. And so that's just what I felt really encouraged by yesterday. Even though like it started off that way, I was like, it didn't end that way though. Like there was so much good, and there was so many good memories, and so many good memories now. And like when you were talking about like your friend that you were sitting with that doesn't want to have the tough conversation, you know, like just like kind of wants to leave it in the past. It's like I have found that every tough conversation has brought me closer to that person, you know, or has given me new perspective for that person, or has given me more compassion or grace. And so also being willing to do the work, like I think you're like the Lord blesses that work too, of like, okay, like you don't want to stay bitter, you don't want to stay with unforgiveness and things like that. So I don't know, that's that's so good answer.
I think that's really good because, you know, I think again for each one of us, the reality is there's things back there. And so there's either two kind of options, is that we know that they're back there, and and when I say deal with them, I'm not trying to say in like a superficial way, but we've walked through them, whether that's in our own time, in our own way, or with, you know, a pastoral, you know, counselor or a counselor, or we have not, but they're still back there. And so I think what I'm trying to help everybody that's listening understand is that they're there. Like those stories are there. Those memories are there. The highs, you know, like I just like by building a habit of reflection over these last 10, 15 years, the one thing is that I have just become more aware of all the good in my life. And, you know, it's easier for me now to recall stories from my childhood and from, you know, like my grandpa's farm that he sold when I was 6, and, you know, all those things, because I've chosen, and part of that is just like stepping into writing. You have to access a lot of that stuff in order to understand, you know, where we're at. The thing I want people to hear though is that it's there. And what I'm hoping you're hearing is, you know, in order to really move forward with peace and with clarity, there's a chance that you have to go back a little bit. And, you know, I like to think of the rearview mirror analogy here, you know, because we can't drive staring in the rearview mirror. Like that's dangerous, Megan. Don't do that. You know, that's how you get into crashes. But it's important, you know, one of the first things they tell you when you get into a car is to check your mirrors, you know, and I remember that from driver's ed of checking your mirrors, and I don't always do it to the best of my ability anymore. Like I'll drive and I'll be like, oh, I'm not even looking outside the back of my car, and I have to tilt it. But the reality is to understand your surroundings and to understand what is behind you and what does it say on the mirror.
Like on the side mirrors?
Yeah, on the side mirrors.
Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear.
Yeah, they're closer than they appear, and I think that they're more powerful than they appear. I think those things they're closer in that they can impact us more than we realize. Remembering, the power of remembering is taking a look back so that we can go forward, so that we can put the car into forward, into drive and move in a way that brings us to the places that God has called us to go. Because if we do not do that, what I've realized in my own life is that I bring all of these things with me that I'm not supposed to bring with me, that poison every place that I go in the future, because, this relationship is how I view every relationship. And this experience that I had informs every experience within that same umbrella. And until I can really understand that was there, it's really hard to navigate that. And so a lot of people in relationships, I suck at relationships. After 3 months, this always comes up. Well, have we ever stopped to see like what patterns are there? Like what was the source of that fear that crept in that caused you to kind of sabotage and all those things? And I think that can go down work, that can go down all these different areas that we really are going to uncover through JourneyWay, in just the idea of like, we are one whole person. We have all these different areas in our life. But when Jesus is at the center, he can impact all of them. And part of that is by giving him our past.
Yeah. And a lot of this for you kind of stemmed around like journaling and giving yourself space to like remember and for these things to come up. And so how did this start for you, and what has journaling kind of like looked like for you in the process?
Yeah. I mean, for one, journaling has become a habit of capturing my present, but one of the rhythms that I've really built in is a couple times a year, especially when I'm doing my year-end reflection, I will pull out journals from that year and even sometimes previous years and just kind of thumb through. And, I'm kind of weird, this, but I have a table of contents in my journals. So I will go back and I will actually like label what they are. So I can open the front and I can see the different things. So I don't always label them while I'm writing them. They're just page with words. But as I look back at them, I'm like, oh, God, this was a God's provision story, or this was a prayer. And I'll just write prayer for blank in the table of contents. And what's really cool is that when I open these up, I can see prayer for blank was answered. This relational struggle that I journaled about 14 times in this 3 months, like that relationship has moved forward, or that relationship is better. And so I'm able to see those things. But I would say, gosh, this was probably a few years ago. I was doing this exercise and I was just kind of in like a discouraged place, just feeling like I was stuck, like nothing had happened. And I opened up some journals and really was able to see like the evidence of God in different ways in my life. And I was able to see, like one of the pages was just like a financial thing of like a unexpected. And it was, when we lived in New Jersey, we lived there during COVID, and I don't even know what it was, but it was this like tax relief thing that happened, and they paid it 5 years later. So we got it last year from like 2020 or 2021. And I had written that, just like that was the whole like journal entry. And I was just like, whoa, like I was discouraged about finances, but then seeing that, I was like, man, God has come through in the past, and I can trust that he's going to keep coming through. And so every place I looked in that journal was just a reminder that he did it before and he'll do it again. And I think that's been the power for me. Is that something that's kind of been a part of your life too?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I literally just did this last week where I got lunch with a friend, and I actually said, I was like, I just feel like God's just not speaking to me in this area. And she's like, okay, you're going to go back through your journals. Like, remember that God does speak to you. And so I went back of just like my last journal I had, and it's all over, like the prayers being answered or the journal entries. And so that I was like, it's like so classic, like the 14 entries about this one situation, and you read it and you're like, man, I don't even think about that today.
Right,
But
that's
in
not
the
on my
moment,
mind. Yeah.
in the moment, that was like really big, And so I just think, the more that you can document the ways that God is faithful, like the more that I'm looking for it too in the moment, and like seeing it today and being like, okay, God is faithful right now in this and this area, and
sure.
seeing the good in it too. And so that kind of leads us, I think, into one of the first points, though. It's just like, there's so much good that comes from remembering, and one of that is gratitude. And it just like, it increases gratitude for the Lord, for the people in your life. But what would you speak to in regards to like that increased gratefulness?
Yeah, and I think what we're going to give is just kind of 3 simple ways that remembering benefits you. And the first being gratitude. Like, to me, like I was saying, it allows me to see how far I've come. It allows me to see, God's provision. It allows me to see the relationships. One of the things that I do in my year-end reflection is people of the year. And why I do that is because over the 12-month period of time, I'm able to see that God put people in my life for particular reasons and particular moments. And, sometimes those relationships are people that come in and you're like, oh man, this guy's going to be my best friend for a long time. And then you zoom back out and you're like, okay, we're not that close right now. But for that 3 months, it was just like lightning in me, like, and I have a friend that comes to mind that really, really helped me believe that like the ideas I had, the dreams I had mattered, and that people, that it could impact people, and really gave me a lot of courage to step out. And, we're still friends. We still talk. But, at that time I probably thought like, oh man, this is game changer, and it was a game changer, but in a different way than I expected. And so, but by remembering that, it gives me a ton of gratitude to see where I've come from, and also to recognize what God has done.
Yeah, I think, and it also like increases our faith too, right? Like it says, like if he did it once, he'll do it again. And so I think along with the gratitude comes this like perspective shift of like, what else is possible with the Lord? What else can be redeemed? What else can he come through in as well?
Yeah. So remembering grows gratitude, but it also builds our faith. And like you just said, it's that idea of what God has done in the past, he can do again. And so that's in my own story. I can see that, and it can grow my faith. Like, again, that financial provision, the New Jersey tax relief or whatever thing, that gave me the belief in the faith that God was good enough, that God he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, like that he can provide for our financial needs. I think remembering really does grow our faith as well. What's the third kind of benefit of remembering?
Yeah, the third is it gives direction, which I think, remembering doesn't mean to like live in the past and then to reminisce or to get stuck in those ways, but it really is like kind of a launching pad, I think, into what else God has for you, and to give direction to where you could go and where he could be leading as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, we said it at the beginning, is that really before we identify where we're at and where we're going, where God's leading us, what this does is it gives us that direction. One, it can cause us to, by remembering like this, there's an old thing in the Bible about like a dog returning to its vomit. It's kind of a gross picture, but it's something that we do over and over again when we put ourselves in the same situations we've been in the past. And so I know a common way I've heard of it is like in relationships, especially in college ministry. It's like, yeah, no, she's changed. Like, it's going to work this time. And they've broken up 5 times. And you're like,
Yeah.
But like, it gives us new direction by remembering. Like, if we can remember, like, hey, this is how I felt when this happened in the past. This is how I felt when I entertained this sin, when I lived in this sin. Like, I don't want to live in that again. Like, I don't want to experience that pain again. And so I'm going to set a new course. I'm going to go a new direction. I'm going to invite new people into my life, because these people, as much as I love them and they're going to have a space in my life, they can't be the culture makers in my life anymore. And I need new culture makers. I need new people that help me live in a new reality. And so all of those things, as we look back, give us that direction forward. And so I know one of the biggest things that we really strive for and stretch for on this podcast is to give some level of handles. And, you know, and the whole idea of the challenges that we do is because I think one, challenge is a huge aspect of adventure. And so as we live like this everyday aspect of this, challenge is a way to infuse this conversation into our week and into our day. And so let's talk about the challenge for today. What's the challenge for this week?
The challenge for this week is the rear view challenge.
It's so hard to say.
It's so hard to say. When you just like teed me up for that, I was like, you did that on purpose.
No, I kind of did. No, the rear view challenge or the rear view check challenge, where really what we want you to do is not, you know, I just want to give a disclaimer. Like for me, having a professional counselor has been a huge part of my journey and a huge part of my story. And I know I can speak for you as well.
Yeah.
That for both of us, like that's having a Christian counselor that has a biblical perspective yet is clinically trained has been really important for us. And I think it can be for a lot of people. But this rear view check challenge isn't like, okay, we're going to dig up all the bones in our life.
Right.
We are just going to look back. And so here's the instructions, is set aside 10 to 15 minutes this week and go back to some old journals, notes, or photos and look for breakthroughs, answered prayers, or growth, and then write down what you notice. What do you hope somebody kind of experiences from this challenge?
Well, one, I hope that what you experience is just a level of gratitude for your story. Like, I just think that there's so much power in your testimony and in what God's done, and there's so much more good than I think we see in the moment. And so that's my hope, is just that you see some good, you see some provision, and it makes you a little bit more excited for what could happen next. What about you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the same, like even as we continue, because on the podcast over the next few episodes, we're going to hear from a couple different friends of mine. One is my friend Lori, who wrote a book called Tracking God in Your Life. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continue this conversation next week, where we're actually going to see like where God is in our story and where we've missed him in the past. And she's just going to really walk us through that. And then we're also going to talk about like, okay, practically, how can we map this out? And we are big on the visual side of this. And, you know, Joshua, God instructed them to place 12 stones in the Jordan River after they crossed miraculously. And that was for people that would see those stones, and the kids would ask their parents, what's up with those stones? Well, I think there's value in creating the visual of what God's done in our life for ourselves to remember, but also for the people around us to say, what, you know, why is that? Why do you have that? Or why do you keep that thing from your grandpa or from college? And it's like, no, because that tells me a story, and it tells you a story of his faithfulness. So I'm excited to kind of continue this conversation, to continue to walk in this. And so I think that this can give them a taste of that. Pete Scazzaro, he wrote something that has really stuck with me, because he wrote, and he's really talking about kind of our past and how our family of origin, our stories really impact our present and our future. And one of the things that he writes is, Jesus may live in your heart, but grandpa still lives in your bones. And I love it, because even theologically, if Jesus doesn't live in our heart, the Holy Spirit comes. Yeah, that's a side story. But the reality is that both of those things are existing. You know, when the old is gone, the new has come. We are a new creation spiritually. Like, we are rebirthed and remade and eternal. Like, it's incredible. However, like, our stories don't just dissolve. Like, the past doesn't dissolve. Those hurts oftentimes don't just dissolve, but they can be redeemed. And so I think that idea of Jesus lives in my heart, grandpa still lives in my bones, is kind of what we're talking about here. And so I really hope people can really step into that. But as we close, I just want to give kind of a family-oriented, reminder of subscribing and leaving a review.
Perfect segue.
I said it in a weird way. Yeah. But, I just think if you've enjoyed these episodes, if you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe to it so that you get the notifications. and then leave a rating and review. So have a great week, and we'll see you next time on the podcast.